All right, Coffee with Guys here with Mike Hernandez, LSN. And little background, Mike, we've known each other for a little bit from back in the day.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But for the record, because everyone seems to, and I'm going to bring this up because you're very athletic. You're actually, you were
back in the day, dude.
Back in the day, we're still athletic, but I just want, for the record, put it on there because for the few people in this room, by the way, people seem to think I wasn't athletic. Can you kind of confirm that?
No. You were a stud pitcher, a Panther, FIU Panther.
Absolutely.
Which makes me even prouder. You got 1 or 2 state titles. What was it?
I had 2 in high school. High school.
Yeah, you had 2 state championships because you were Westminster, you were Belen, and you were Pace, right? I think.
Yeah, man. I did travel. For the record, I never got kicked out of high school because that was a big thing too. Like, why'd you go so many high schools?
I'd never heard that. No,
you didn't hear,
just
but
went and played baseball at great high schools.
Yeah. Actually, the truth is, one of the biggest. If I had to go back and play it again, the experience at Westminster Christian, where we actually missed each other by a year. Believe it or not.
I transferred it after you.
And where our kids at now, playing with Coach Lagrana, was one of the best experiences I had growing up.
That's when my life started, I swear. I mean, I loved that 1 year that I was at Westminster with our friend Jonathan Yedo. I miss Danny Savignon, another friend of ours. He had just, he graduated, I think, 99. I was 2000.
Yep.
And the baseball team had kind of changed by then because the coach had left, but it was still a great experience. But we did miss each other. Then you went on and won another state championship somewhere, which I know poor you.
No, it's just little validation. We're in the suits and ties now and stuff.
No. Lou was an athlete. Lou played basketball and baseball. He was good for 5 fouls when he played basketball, man. He was like the guy. That's their best player. That's their best player, Lou. Just a good one. Not a flagrant foul, but just make sure you use your 5 fouls. And you were useful. You were useful, and you were big, so you did some rebounding too. I didn't play baseball, but I did watch you.
No, well, that's why. See, this goes back to the PR side of it, right? The communications. You're now officially getting into the hype machine, right? The hype. I know this isn't, obviously and you got a lot of stuff going on and which is what I talk about in your life as far as communications. We call it COM. Is that the proper term?
They shorten it to COMS, which is COMMS, but that basically is communication, which is public relations, media relations, which I could explain the difference between the two. You could also go into the government space, the lobbying aspect of it. Now what's popular, and I do it as well, is talking about public affairs because there are different ways to service clients. So you could say that, but my safe space where I do the most work is communications.
It's been pretty cool to see you, obviously not being adults in the last 15 years. You've gone into that space. You're continuing to evolve. I see you on Univision. Telemundo. Sorry about that. Telemundo. So only channel I watch. But also too, are you still teaching at FIU as well? Kind of going back to our.
Yeah, I am. This is my 3rd year, I think, as an adjunct professor for the School of International and Public Affairs, which is where I graduated from at FIU. I have 2 degrees from that school, and then the College of Communication. So I do courses in both, mostly online. But after we get through the COVID part of this, and we reintroduce the in-person aspect of that course that I'm teaching, it's going to be a split between Miami and Washington because we have a DC campus. FIU does up there.
That's great. I saw that. FIU's taking over.
It's not the same FIU that we went to.
I mean, driving by the other day, I went to go. Actually, season ticket holder, right? Supporting the school. It just looks like more and more like almost like a mini city now.
57,000 students, 4th largest university in the United States. It is the biggest degree awarder of Hispanic engineers in the country. It has a College of Law whose graduates routinely have the highest bar passage rate in Florida. Not Florida State, not Miami. FIU College of Law graduates, just it's almost like a routine already that they're always getting the highest bar passage rate in the state. Our College of Medicine is well respected because of it, even though it's very young.
It's about 10 years old, maybe max.
Exactly. And yet they have minority students. They have a neighborhood health program where they pair medical students with low-income families in the community, and they become like their doctors for 4 years. I mean, they've done so much. I'm full disclosure, I'm the president of the Alumni Association, so obviously I really love FIU, but they're coming a long way.
And congrats on that, by the way, too, because this year you just took that over, right?
Last year.
Or last
so
year.
I have very little time left because it's 1 year terms, and I was elected to 2. But I'm still gonna stay involved. You know me, FIU is just.
I mean, you're kind of like you're very symbolic with FIU. Like obviously seeing you out there in the community and what you're doing. One thing that I kind of want to get into, and it's something that everybody talks about, is this word communication. It tends to be, everyone says they're either an effective communicator, they're a good communicator, poor communicator. I mean, your job, right? Your what you do is, in essence, communicating and delivering a message, right? Like 101, like in your opinion, and let's talk about a business because that's what we talk about, right? You work with businesses and then people in general as well. But and us, like, what do you think is the key to be a good communicator?
One, don't communicate when there's an emergency alone. Think of communications as an insurance policy. Think of it as
great. You're speaking my language. That's great.
Yeah, think of it as if you're a major company, you can call it corporate social responsibility.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you have a crisis, and everyone eventually does, your reputation before that crisis is critical to whether or not you reemerge from that crisis. So some folks only want to call on PR people when there's a problem. They don't want to have that continuous, they could call it marketing too. It doesn't have to be, this is our corporate communications department. This is our public whatever you want to call it, but it's your outward facing team that is constantly communicating who you are and building your brand. Inevitably, you have challenges. You may lose a major contract, and that may hurt your corporate reputation. But if you had a team constantly promoting to the right outlets, whether that be, it doesn't have to be a major newspaper. It could be industry insiders, etc. If you have a team doing that, then you could weather the storm, and it can help the bottom line. So that's on the corporate side. What I've done it for governments in a crisis, that's very different. They're not worried about the bottom line. It is a government. It is a public service. And usually those are the very important times when they call in the crisis communications folks.
It's more damage control.
That's damage control, or, hey, we have a problem. We need to explain it to you. So I've done it from the inside and the outside. For when I was with Miami-Dade County government, a crisis we had was a Hurricane Irma, which until it actually made landfall in Florida, it was projected to be a Cat 5.
It was a problem.
Yeah. So
I had more hair back then, I think.
Yeah. Well, you may have lost it because of that storm, but lots of insurance work afterwards. But Irma was a big one. Zika, when we had the Zika virus down here, and we were seeing babies born with very, very small heads as a result of mothers who had the virus. It crippled Miami's tourism industry for about 2 months in the height of the summer.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah. So those are the internal, when I was working in government. External, I've worked with a crisis where it's informational. So you have to provide information to the general public on what happened, whether it was, unfortunately, and I don't mind saying it because it was public. The Miami Herald reported it. I helped the former Broward sheriff after the Parkland shooting. We had to provide information on what transpired that day to a point, because when it's under investigation, active investigation, you can't really be too open about it.
So there's only so much you can say.
Exactly.
But
so
how much is
two
that?
Aspects.
But when you look at it though, when you're effectively communicating, like how much is it tailored to what you want to say, or the second question becomes, or how are people going to interpret it as well? Because intentions say everything, right?
The most important part is speaking with one voice. So the first thing is always, hey, look, I have a major problem. You can't have 10 cooks in the kitchen. There has to be, first you always have to work with your legal team to make sure that you're not saying something that could expose you to any kind of legal repercussions. But you can't just say no comment either. You have to provide some kind of statement, and that is usually your crisis comms person with your legal person. You provide that information, but you speak with one voice. You don't say, Luis, you're going to go out there and speak to these reporters, and then I'm going to speak to those reporters. It has to be the exact same message. And it has to be truthful. Don't lie. The last thing any PR consultant should be advising a business is shade the truth or be less than truthful. Journalists are good at their job, okay? And they're going to find out. And then your credibility is hurt. And then your corporate reputation, if you're JAG or whomever, that'll suffer from it. So you need professionals that, again, yes, they're there in a crisis, but before there's a crisis, when everything's going great, like your business, it's doing really well. It's weathered this COVID storm. You employ a lot of people and they're well paid, et cetera, et cetera. That's all wonderful. But don't give up on your brand building, on your communicating to the industry before.
It's from a sports analogy, you have to have that offense and defense mentality on both ends, right?
But most of the time you have to be on offense.
Yeah, and to kind of soften the blow, because one or things happen. But the thing too with the flow of information now, like even just we're doing stuff now, we're putting on social media, but now the fact that everybody has a phone, any employee, anybody on any time can kind of say whatever they want, that stuff can kind of snowball.
Well,
like, how do you kind of like, because that now it's an X factor, right? 20 years ago, you can curate anything you want in the paper. Your job was probably a lot easier. Now, obviously, we're getting older, but things are evolving too.
Yeah, basically, one stupid tweet or social media post doesn't just harm you personally. If you're a business owner, it harms your employees. So it's critical to have a social media policy for your employees.
Right.
The big companies do it. The Walt Disneys of the world, for example, if you're a character, it's my understanding, if you're a character actor for them, a princess, Mickey Mouse, whomever it may be, you're not permitted to post about that on your social media. Those are contracts you enter into. That the same is true of other companies, big and small, or at least it should be, because again, yes, we all use social media sometimes as an outlet for our feelings, but it's a double-edged sword. You can definitely do a lot of good by spreading
100%.
a message,
right?
But you could also do a lot of harm. There's some that use it as a comically. They make funny jokes. I'm a lover on Instagram of Life of Dad and the Dad and all the dad jokes that they have that aren't offensive. They're just funny.
It's a very safe place to be.
It's a safe space.
Dad jokes are always, that's kind of my inspiration, but
Life of Dad.
Yeah, the dad jokes, you can't really go wrong with that.
No,
right?
I love those. But and your family, and posting about your family. But when it comes to business, you need to, if you are a CEO that does not think they know how to use social media, don't use social media. Right. Have a team that manages it for you, because there are appropriate times to post a message. Yes, that is absolutely true. There are times when you need to do that, but you may not be good at it. Or it could be as simple as you just misspelled something. Have a team, if possible, do it for you so that you're hitting all the right points. If you're a major CEO, most of them, they have legal look at their tweets before they put it out.
Everything is so curated, just in case, right?
Just in case, because it could affect your business.
The catch for us, and we've kind of gone all into the social media thing. Number one, we do it because we think attention is a currency for us. And more than anything, we want to kind of show really our culture and the authenticity. So sometimes it's like, but you're right. It's that catch-22. Like, you want to be authentic, right? You want to be who you are, but you have that flip side of, can it be interpreted correctly? It's such. I call it the landmines. Twitter's a landmine. I'm enjoying Twitter. By the way, shout out to you. You have a lot of Twitter followers, so you get you're almost at the 5K mark. So you get the blue check mark yet or no?
I had the blue check mark from when I was in government. Someone on our team at the fire department, as a matter of fact, the PIO out there contacted me and said, you should get the blue check mark because you're a verified government official, and whenever there's an emergency, a hurricane, whatever it may be,
right,
reporters are going to want that check mark so that they know this is not some spam account or some hacker or whatever. So I have had it for a while. Since I've gone on Telemundo, I've had more followers. because I'll put something out. I'll put out a Telemundo story that I've been interviewed for, and it's interesting the responses. Sometimes they're nice, other times they're, not. But you just can't focus on those. You have to say, what's my goal in tweeting this,
Right.
or what's my goal in posting this. So don't just one thing it doesn't sound very good, but it's like do not drink and post. If you are having fun with your family or with friends, and you're a business owner, don't think it's a good idea to post something that you're going to regret later. You have to have that line between your personal posts, if you have a personal page, and your family, your wife, your children, and your business. That's another reason why people like me get hired, where you have a strategy behind it.
Well, I'm asking, how much is it, as far as in your line, is it more of, if we look at it from a percentage standpoint, is a lot of it more from a crisis management, like that tweet, that picture, that little incident that was misconstrued, that kind of went viral or was just kind of not the right, taken out of context? Is that a majority of what you kind of step in?
No, social media is now becoming a bigger part of what I do, but most of it is, like I was saying, on the outward facing, and forward thinking of building the brand, and the public relations. I work with a lot of politicians, so they're constantly looking at how it is that they're going to present themselves to their constituents, or if they're thinking of running for office or something like that. So that's more of the work. The problems are when they do something they shouldn't. And that's why I always say, you need to have another pair of eyes, another perspective, watching what you want to put out there. Whether it's a company press release, which at the county, one of the things that we didn't do before I arrived as communications director was we did not track how many of our press releases were being opened. So I revamped it because I said, look, if we're going to send out a press release, let's include a link so that we get the hits as to how many people are actually looking at the press release. And then you tailor your messaging that way. So, for example, you want to see how many times they open a press release from JAG. Let's do that. Let's figure it out and then get metrics. And then you tailor your posts as Lugaz or as JAG. You tailor your posts based on what content has been successful in generating clicks. So whether it's
getting more granular as far as how you're doing it.
And you create a strategy, you create a story. And it's sad that so many of my friends, whenever you have an economic downturn, they're like the first ones to go because, we don't think we need that anymore. No, it's actually, you do need it. If folks don't know that you're a thought leader, someone like you should be a thought leader. You should have, for example, a journalist may not write about you. That doesn't matter, but they can call you and say, man, there's this new law in the state of Florida that's going to affect your industry, and it's HB 250. I just made that up, House Bill 250. If I send it to you, can you read it? Can you tell me what you think? What kind of impact that would have here in South Florida? That's thought leadership. That's like you are sourcing. You are being a source for reporters. That's currency. You want to talk about currency?
Yeah,
that's
we do all the time.
Value.
Right.
That's value. That's when people start saying, "I got to call Lugaz," which they may already do. I don't know, but I'm saying
they're starting to.
But that's good. Okay, you want to be that person that people say he knows his stuff, and that's part of where you get advisors. You have a great social media team. Okay, so how am I going to leverage what they do with JAG? Am I going to leverage it with Lugaz? How am I going to become, or Doug or Fernie, whomever, how are we going to become those sources in the industry? You already do very well as a business, but taking it to another level. Somebody you may know who's a CEO of a local restaurant chain, with a similar last name as yours, he's done an excellent job at the branding as well.
Well, he's DNA. He's my twin.
Yes. So. Well, probably.
He's actually 7 minutes older than me.
7 minutes older? But he's shorter than you, though.
He's short, of course.
Yeah.
So that's...
But the brand is important. When you brand yourself, when you're communicating who you want to be, and you have that level of credibility with folks in the community, it's only a positive for your business.
Well, that's the part about the communication side and the social media and the attention, which is, you said it very well. I talk about time being a currency, right? Because it's hard to kind of get an ROI on it, right? But attention brings so many more things, good and bad. But then it comes to like, how are you curating that?
Yeah.
So it's kind of that fine line. Like I'm fascinated, and I want to get your take on this too. Like I've gotten more comfortable doing this kind of things. My whole, or I guess one of my drives is being held accountable. Like it's kind of big for me. Like we all hold ourselves accountable for certain ways, but being able to kind of put myself out there as a business leader, as an owner of a company, and say I'm going to do certain things for my employees. This is kind of like a check. Like I welcome like the check me, right?
Yeah.
Like how much is that? And as far as you, when you curate the communications for your clients too, like hey, if you're going to say something, you got to kind of own up to it too.
Yeah, I mean, there are folks that are, and I think it's part of this electronic revolution, I guess is what I call it. Before, you did not want to be there out here. You didn't want to be putting your content out or your thoughts out there. And look, to a certain extent, I get why. Okay, there's legal exposure, there's the vanity. Like, I don't know if I look good on camera. Who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, you have to know, people need to know you exist.
Right.
Okay, so you could do the traditional advertising thing, which even now, working at a TV station, I can tell you that's a part-time thing. I can tell you that it's not the same as before where you just check the overnight ratings. You also now have to check and see who's watching on their phones now, because not as many people are watching on a traditional television set. There are different ways that you have to track that. But the point is that you got to go where the people are. That's why social media is an excellent tool for that.
Sure.
Because they're going to your Instagram story and seeing a link to what is being produced, and they're listening to it. It's important to use the tools that you have and meet the people where they are. Not everyone's going to read the same newspaper to the extent that people read newspapers like they used to.
Right.
In a sense, you're not broadcasting anymore. You're actually narrowcasting. You're finding an audience. You're targeting that audience. You are hoping they follow Jag or you or Fernie or Doug or whomever, and that you are providing the content to them. That's the beauty of social media. We could talk about all the nasty things about social media, okay?
Which gets the huge pub, but I like talking about the positive part of it.
Yeah.
Because if and I've gotten better at it, but I think there's so many good things that come out of it. But most people don't. They don't
think about it.
They don't think about the connectivity aspect of it. I could tell you
during Hurricane Irma, okay, I gained like 1,500, 2,000 followers just because some people did not have power, but they had charged their cell phones and somehow connected to the Wi-Fi. I don't know how. And they would read my tweets, and folks would come up to me. I have an addiction to Cuban coffee, right? So those things happen.
Who doesn't?
So I will go to have Cuban coffee, and sometimes even Sergio's. Yes, you have a location in Pembroke Pines,
close to your house.
Yes, a few miles from my house. Pembroke Pines is long, but right there in the center of Pembroke Pines by I-75. Which for you, when you're going on your way to Disney World, you pull over.
I always drive by
You
Pines.
drive by it, yeah.
It's Pines East. Pines West.
It's a
Pines
different
East.
universe,
Yes.
Broward County. But they would talk to me about that.
I want to say something real quick because it's funny because every time I'm coming home from Disney, when my daughter sees NBC6, the actual sign, she's like, "Okay, we're almost home." That's it.
Let me tell you, you are almost home.
It's
but you're
45
still
minutes
like
away,
45 minutes.
but that's kind of like, okay, stop asking me where I'm at. But sorry about that. I go, hey, Leah, look outside the window.
45 minutes.
The news. I'm almost home.
Yeah. No, the whole point was when I was putting out messages via Twitter and Facebook, folks contacted me after the fact, or even when I was having coffee, they would say, hey, thanks for putting out that information. Something as very, very simple as avoid these streets, the traffic signals are off. There's a boil water alert until further notice. The curfew remains in effect. All of those different, or for example, right now, the latest update is that FPL, we would partner with FPL, obviously they're the service provider. and we would say, okay, the latest update from FPL is this many houses without power. This is how quickly they think they're going to be back online. And sometimes the news is broadcasting something else and we're not hosting a press conference, but putting all of that out led to more information. So let's look at the positive, like you're saying, about something like this and how it is that people interact with it and how you're telling your story on your terms to folks. I'm still amazed by how many people in business that are very successful are just very risk averse when it comes to pushing their information out there, and like we said, to the people where they can gather the content. It's a little worrisome, but leads to consulting contracts for people like me too.
Yeah, the shift has happened. It's obviously faster than most. Like, I mean, I'm a big believer that this needs to be part of your business strategy either way. How you want to curate it, and I think a lot, like in anything, getting uncomfortable is a big step in getting more into social.
Get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Don't just jump out there and do what you're doing without being properly prepared and having a very nice space like you guys do here as well. I mean, there are some folks that, they'll do it from their cell phone. If I do it from my cell phone, you could tell the difference on television when it's my cell phone and when it's an actual photographer camera that comes to where I am. It's just the quality. So make sure that you do it right, but ultimately it's about getting your message out. Hey, there's a storm coming. By the way, hurricane season's coming. Have you checked your insurance policy? You become a source because a lot of these reporters, remember, they're getting younger and younger. So the news desk folks are more our age and younger, and they are looking for content, looking for sources, looking for stories, often on social media.
Yeah, and it's 100%. It's the evolution from like our parents and what's happening now, and then we're in our late 30s. We're going to the 4th floor pretty soon.
I still got a year and a half, man.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, man. I don't turn 40 till next September.
Well, I'm still in my 30s too, so I got a 6 months.
We've got friends that already made it though.
They're on the 4th floor. We're still on the 3rd floor. We're partying, man. We're in the penthouse of the 3rd floor. It's a good time to be in right now. It's a really good time. You can kind of like you're in the middle, right? It's kind of like being a senior in high school.
We're seniors in high school, yeah.
Seniors, we already have like we're kicking in the last 3 months of right. No homework.
Underwater basket weaving are the courses we're taking.
It's a good place to be in. It's a good place to be in.
Nothing serious.
The other thing too, like when we talk about like the social and the change, but it's also about like how are we going to like look at the next 5-10 years, right? Our future clients, our potential clients, they're all kind of getting into this more than the previous medium, right? So it's also having that being confident enough and having that foresight to have that exploration as a business. Yeah. Like you got to get into this because the people that you're going to deal with back in the day, or in the future, it's going to happen.
Yeah, but it's there's a very well-known CEO of a media and entertainment company who always says, "Innovate or die." So this is part of the innovation. So you're in the social media space, and then there'll be something else. There'll be another way that you get your message out, whether it's using social media or some other platform that becomes a social media channel, and using that to put out your info. Back in the old days, that wasn't the case. You needed to pitch it to a reporter. You needed to hope that reporter came over and that reporter would write a nice piece on you for X magazine. Nowadays, that's not the case. Nowadays, it's I can broadcast Jag Insurance. I can do it on a YouTube channel. I can do it whatever. And in the future, it may be a little different. I can't even tell you what it'll be. But you adapt, you innovate, and you take that space. You got to be prepared, but you got to take that space because the Johnny-come-latelys that just are getting in here, it's going to take them a while to adapt. You know what? That'll hurt their bottom lines. Okay, I'm not saying everyone has to do it the way that you choose to do it, but I know people that have come to this agency, you all, because they've watched you either on Instagram or something else,
right? And
I think they've called you and just said, I need a plan or I need whatever. That's critical. Because you're where they are looking. They're looking at Instagram or they're looking at something else and you're there. That's important. But my all-time favorite is the Friday Funny or whatever it is that you do. I mean,
I appreciate that.
That's pretty spectacular.
Thank you for that.
No, the last one you did on last Friday was was pretty spectacular.
The techno tech.
Yeah, the techno. That was, see, that's innovative though.
You know,
It's funny. People like it, but they're also seeing that it's Jag Insurance.
Right. So it's funny when it comes to the comedy. I'll talk about this forever. You know, it's kind of like something that I've kind of. And by the way, I have a great team behind me. You see some of them,
Yeah.
but like, so most people, it's funny when we talk about insurance. Actually, the biggest criticism I might get is like, "Hey, do you even work anymore?" I'm like, "Yeah," because it's kind of like this is a vertical for our business, and it's a piece of it. But I have 3 guys that are great that help me. So like, just joking around. The other day we were joking around, just had an idea, and it's authentic, right? Just put a camera on, joke around, talk about it. And I've gotten so much more comfortable being myself in front of camera. So I consider myself being a funny guy, you know? And
I think you are a funny guy, but you know, if your friend is saying that, you know, they're just teasing you. Okay. If someone in business is saying that, they probably don't know what they're talking about. It is a vertical. It is an area of development that helps your bottom line. What is different than having a dedicated business development person? Okay, because a lot of businesses have that. Law firms have business development people. And there's nothing wrong with that. But remember the innovation aspect of it. You're developing business right now in this kind of platform.
right.
And there's just no way to look at it other than that. You're putting yourself and your business out there. So if it's a buddy of ours that's saying that, I get it. They're just teasing you.
You probably know who they are too.
I know exactly who they are. But put that aside. If someone in business is saying that, don't take their advice anymore, because they're not understanding what this does for your business, your employees, etc. And it's unfortunate if someone in business says that, because again, innovate or die. This is the way that you make sure you're meeting people where they are, a smartphone, a computer, whatever it may be, and you're telling your story, and you're doing something that I haven't seen others do in your industry. I really haven't seen this kind of a...
It's, by the way, some of the confidence on the funny stuff is that we're in insurance. So my confidence level is really high because the floor is so low. So I'm able to kind of do that. That is my extra secret thing. But other than that, I could tell you it is different. It is very hard to kind of quantify. Again, what your rate, your ROI is, right, when you kind of do this stuff. But I'll tell you, one of the biggest factors in why we do this is that for our goal is that when I go, Fernie, Doug, some of our sales team, our account managers, or us just on the road, we go meet somebody and they say, "Hey, man, I've heard about you. I've watched, I've seen that, or wherever I heard about Jag." Now all of a sudden, the resume, which is a big part of sales, like you're in a room and everyone's like, "Never heard about you, who you are, who do you know, like when that goes away, our aspect, like our closing ratio, now it's just about the product, our knowledge, not about who you are and where you came from. So that was kind of our biggest win, and plus our employees, like we've been able to get a lot of employee engagement.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is also underrated. You need to have a happy workforce. You need to have a workforce that enjoys coming to work, whether it's remotely or not, and enjoys being a part of your team. And this could be an outlet for them in that they think it's pretty cool. One of your folks that you bring in here and say, "Well, we want to talk about X insurance product that we have. Why don't you talk about it?" And again, it's a unique setup that you all have for your industry. I don't know of too many insurance companies that do this.
They're not.
Yeah.
So it's funny. And I'll do the short story because I've said it 100 times. But like this is so we compete, and a lot of our competitors are publicly owned. We're privately owned. Mm-hmm. You know the 3 owners. So from a strategic standpoint, we kind of took a step back and said, what can we do that's different that they can't do? And this is a really big space, right? Even something as simple as posting or putting content on LinkedIn. Right, where there's so much red tape or what you want to do, the Friday funnies or being educational, informative, just overall the attention, it became kind of like, let's just go all in and do that because it became a strategic advantage.
Yeah, and LinkedIn is different in the sense that folks are going there more for business leads or whatever, but you don't not post on LinkedIn. You may adapt what you want to put up there. You may emphasize one aspect of your business or one aspect of what you do here in this room over the other. But the point is you're meeting people there.
Right.
The folks that are looking at they're updating their own network. They're looking at who their contacts are. and man, I need this, and I saw Jag Insurance, I saw Luis Gazitua. Let me reach out to him, and I've had clients contact me just because I posted something on LinkedIn. Again, I'm not gonna. I honestly don't post often photos of my family on LinkedIn. That's just something that I choose not to do. That's for Facebook and others. But LinkedIn is more the professional, and folks contact me that way.
But I would say that still on LinkedIn, which is a completely open platform, you still have a lot of trepidation. It's a big word.
Yeah.
I think I said it right. Trepidation as far as
You
post.
said it right.
I did say it right.
Yeah.
The PR team, communications. But the reason being is that you're exposed, right? So everybody's on LinkedIn.
Caution, yeah.
But just like 1% of the people actually post. So if you want to get attention and you want to do anything, you do it there. It's just, there's this whole, that's why we kind of jump in all in there as well. It's free, and it literally free attention.
Yeah.
More than anything.
And you have to just, you have to provide something that people are going to want to come back to.
Right.
And they're going to remember you. And I just think that not enough folks do it because of, instead of trepidation, I'll use the word caution. They're overly cautious. And I think in the long run, I hope I'm wrong because I don't wish anyone failure in business. I want everyone to succeed. But I do think that could contribute to failure or a lack of growing your client base. You got to kind of be out there. You have to get talking about the comfort zone like we were earlier. You have to get uncomfortable. For me, it wasn't comfortable to leave a major government job, go to a firm where it's sink or swim. But I said I have to get uncomfortable if I'm going to continue to grow professionally. That, and I love Miami, man, but the commute from Pembroke Pines was weighing on me for a while. So it was good to go back to Broward for a little bit. But you have to get uncomfortable. And for some businesses, it's something like this. It's changing your sales tactics. It's actually acknowledging that you need to be, as I said, outward facing. You need to be communicating on your behalf, even when the good times are rolling and there's no crisis, there's no pandemic that shuts down your business for 2 months or whatever it was. You got to be always constantly telling your story. Some people say instead of communicating or PR, okay, fine, you don't like those words, fine. Call it whatever you want. Telling your story, brand building, whatever, but you constantly have to do it. The jobs of the future are actually like your team that no one's seeing right now because they're behind the camera. Those folks are going to be even more in demand because they're the innovators.
Right.
Well, so are you for your business, but I'm saying their kinds of jobs, the innovation jobs.
No, I agree with you 100%. It's the future. They're becoming more and more important, helping us do what we have to do to tell our story. Like it's like from the restaurant business, the back of the house and the front of the house. Like there's two different things. You need both, and the back of the house is extremely important.
And look at how well that has done. Branding a Cuban kitchen, and how it is that has raised awareness about what you do. By the way, told your family's story about how it came to be. If folks look for successes, it's those two that we've been jagging. And Sergio's, you look at the brand building, it has worked. It's not just your bottom line. It's a loyalty that you create with people who come to Jag and, like me, go have the cafecito over there in Pembroke Pines. Those are the types of things that you have to always be looking at. And then, you're in a good space, but then what's the next thing? I've always said also whenever I'm consulting especially for companies, if you either trust your communications director or you don't. And I've seen corporate setups where it's, the CEO and then a COO and a vice president and a someone and a someone and a someone. And then over here somewhere is the communications director. Okay. If that person is your outward facing individual who leads a team into battle, if you have a problem, they can't have all that bureaucracy in the way. I've always advocated the CEO has to, the comms person, comms director, VP of corporate comms, whatever it may be, has to have a direct line to the principal being the CEO. Some companies listen to me, some don't. That's fine. But ultimately, it's you
Charge
have
them
to,
more.
you
Charge them more.
well, when there's a problem, they come back. But it's critical in that respect that you have to have that person has to be a confidant. That person has to be someone that you don't have any trepidation, any caution about them, cautious thoughts about them going out and telling your story. So those are little things that I think are becoming more and more apparent to the medium-sized and small businesses than they were. The corporate America, the large ones, the large companies, I think have gotten have gotten the message.
I'll tell you, on a personal note, Mike, just seeing you kind of like what you're doing and the way you've evolved. You use the word uncomfortable, dude. I see it. I've seen you kind of grow in your profession, in your career, kind of where you're going. Dude, it pumps me up. Like we're the same age. We've grown up together. We competed in sports, but kind of what you're doing, it excites me, man. I'm happy you did this, came on. You provide a lot of value. I appreciate you. And I'm excited to see what you're doing in the future. And then you can kind of tell me, curate my, when I do my stand-up tour, you can be my communications director.
I think, listen, you're my friend. I love you guys. Whenever you decide to retire from JAG or maybe just take a second job, it's got to be stand-up comedy. And it has to be something with your tweets. I mean, those tweets, I don't know if someone helps you with them, but they are legendary.
I appreciate that.
They're legendary tweets, and I love seeing them and scrolling through them and showing my wife, like, look at what Lou just did.
See, that's good. On my first stand-up comedy show, it'll be small. You're invited. You and your wife.
In Broward.
I'm not,
No.
okay, maybe.
You're gonna make me come to
maybe
Miami?
if they're nicer, if they don't throw stuff at me, I'll go to Broward. But that's fine
They're
with me.
good at it. Listen, Broward County's just
We'll
20
do.
minutes
You know
away.
what I do? We'll do it outside at Sergio's on the patio.
Oh,
private. I'll do it
You got
private.
a nice patio area up there.
Private. We'll do it like on a weeknight. You're invited, and then you. We'll do it. 20, 30 people. But you're invited.
20, 30. I'm included. One of our friends isn't invited though.
Danny's not coming.
No, Danny's not coming.
Danny's
Danny's not allowed.
Danny's not invited. Danny's not. it's a problem.
Danimal, he's got to stay over here.
Danny's staying at home.
He's staying home now. He's got an even bigger house. He's got deer on his property and stuff. Have you seen it?
Yeah, he's not coming. But I appreciate you, Mike. Thanks for doing this, man.
No problem.
Wish you, and honestly, the most and continued success.
Thank you, and same to you guys. And keep putting the content out. Don't retreat from the strategy you guys have. I love it.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.